Let's talk about Neon Dynasty Commander Best of the Worst. That's the top 3 cards from that set that are seeing play in 1% or less of decks since that set's release. Coming in at number 3, we have Smoke Spirit's Aid. For a red and X, we get a sorcery. For each of up to X target creatures, create a red aura enchantment token named Smoke Blessing attached to that creature. Those tokens have enchant creature, and when enchanted creature dies, it deals 1 damage to its controller, and you create a treasure token. Smoke Spirit's Aid is not a generically good card. When you cast it, it kind of does nothing, and you don't really care too much about the effect that it does have because it's too delayed. But where I think this is actually underutilized is in any Enchantress deck. There's not a lot of red Enchantress decks out there, but I think Smoke Spirit's Aid goes in every single one of them. So if you're in a red Enchantress deck, keep in mind that these enchantment auras come into play under your control. So if you have any Enchantresses that trigger draws off of an enchantment entering the battlefield under your control, you draw off of each of these. So essentially what this ends up being is an X draw spell for the Enchantment Matters deck, and it also triggers any other constellation effects as well. So it's really, really good there. Number 2 is Release to Memory. For 3 and a white, we get an instant, exile target opponent's graveyard. For each creature card exiled this way, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. I think every deck wants some graveyard removal. The trick is finding graveyard removal that fits thematically in your game plan and moves that game plan forward while also residually removing a graveyard or removing specific things from that graveyard. Release to Memory, I think, is a perfect example of that for token-specific decks, or if you care about spirits, because this does make spirit tokens. The fact that you can hold it up at instant speed makes it even more valuable because you don't have to telegraph this. You can hold this up and fire it off at the end of somebody's turn, if right before your turn, if nobody does any recurring, but you can also do this in response to a recursion spell and fizzle it. So I think Release to Memory, while being 4 mana is quite a bit, I think the amount of value and upside you can get in specifically a token or a spirit deck is really great. Best of the Worst is Iron Soul Enforcer. For 4 and a white, we get a 4/4 artifact creature, Human Samurai. Whenever Iron Soul Enforcer or a commander you control attacks alone, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Iron Soul Enforcer is a bomb in any artifact deck, but I think it goes really crazy in value if your deck really cares about recurring artifacts. So if you are in a deck that's putting stuff in your graveyard and also artifact themed, Iron Soul Enforcer becomes a very powerful card, and even more so if you have a commander with evasion. I'm thinking about like Shroom the Hegemon, where you're constantly milling yourself and putting artifacts in your graveyard. Shroom will recur them, and then you can make Shroom recur them again without even having to send her back to the command zone because you just drop your Iron Soul Enforcer and attack. I love that this ability has haste, and I do think that it's being underutilized in those style of decks. That's it for Neon Dynasty Best of the Worst. The cards that we found are pretty niche for the type of decks that they want to go into, but they're really good in those decks, so I thought that was pretty interesting. It is kind of what we expect when we go through the commander sets because they are more synergy focused. What did you guys think about these cards?